Wow, when I realized how many verses we were going to read today, I was like, there's no way I'm doing this in one part. But we did get this finished. Okay, so we still have the shield of belief, the helmet of deliverance. We got some things to go into coming up next. Anyway, with that, this is the Afterburn. These are the comments, questions, thoughts, sort of feedback from the teaching. So if you have any of those, you can line up here. If you're online, you can start typing in. The chat has been opened up again. And so our Shamish team in the back there will take note of your comments and questions. We do apologize in advance if somebody doesn't get theirs read. We do miss some sometimes. And so bring those same questions again to a zone meeting, okay? We'll begin with Ashley.
When you were talking earlier about being mad and aggression, and I forget exactly what you said, but you stirred up something in me, and I was wondering if I'm on point. So when I get mad, then that means I need to see my delusion bubble, or I need to see that my delusion bubble needs to be popped, and I need to let go of that emotion. And then I started thinking, the being mad and the delusion bubble is me trying to hold on to pride and ego. Would you say that's right, or am I off track with that?
No, I think that's mostly got the right thing. I mean, look, the bottom line is it depends on what you're upset about. Okay? If you're angry because you're not getting what you want, if you're angry because you think something's not fair, if you're angry because you're in a situation you don't think you should be in, well, then you have a delusion problem of realizing he causes and allows everything, and so you should not be angry about that. Okay? That doesn't mean you're going to love being in that moment, but it's the anger response that shows that you're taking it in a personal way because you're not getting what you want.
Okay, and if I may just so take it one step further to make sure I connect the dots correctly, when I don't express it as much as I used to, but I can still feel it inside when I just try to respect you and just shut up and put up and let you speak. In those moments, what would you say I get angry most about? Not getting my way, or what would you say it would be? I'm trying to figure out the core of what it would be.
Look, in my experience with you, a lot of your anger comes from when, part of it is you're not getting your way, but part of it is it not being the way you think things should be or should be handled. So, and that's what everybody struggles with, by the way. I mean, if things are not handled the way you want them to or think they should, or if somebody else handles it and you think you should have handled it, or whatever it is, it somehow comes back to not getting your way. We act like a little child and we throw a little tantrum because we didn't get our way, all right? And so that could be more like, but I wanted to do that. Or, why did you do that? You shouldn't do that. It's just all this kind of control issues, okay? We get angry when we have our control challenged, okay?
Okay, and then my last question for this segment is how, in that moment, because I go from 0 to 100 pretty quickly, how do I slow down time to just, and I know you're probably going to say, well, just stop, slow down, think about it.
No, I'm not going to say that.
Okay, well, what would you say for me to calm down a bit? And so I can realize that my delusion bubble in that moment needs to be popped.
All right, so there's two things I would say real quickly. One is just being aware is a first step, okay? And the more that you try to be aware of it, then you start to observe yourself, the more you can then try to slow yourself down. But you have to have an awareness. If you're just triggered and you're in the moment without any awareness, then you can't slow down. So you have to get your awareness of yourself, okay? So you have to be looking at yourself going, I'm angry right now. That's weird. Why am I angry? What's causing it? I need to slow down. But it's practice over time that will get you there. So the practice you could do is a visualization exercise where basically you have your situation that just happened and you got angry. And you got angry quickly. Well, then when you're calm, play that thing, that whole scenario back in your mind. And this time in your mind, see if you can be aware of that moment when you started getting angry and have that awareness, then pause. So practice pausing at that trigger moment. The thing happened that got you angry, and as soon as it happened, you're like, and then you practice when you play it back, this time pause. Slow down and say, hold on a second, is this really what I want to do? It's not an easy thing to do because these are what we call triggers, which basically once that button gets pushed, you shift into an auto response, and we're not thinking at all, we're just responding. Okay, we're reacting without thought. Okay, so you have to practice self-awareness.
Sorry, last question. So how I be quiet when you're speaking, when you try to correct me and stuff like that, would it be okay to practice that with other people as well? Or
Sure.
would that be putting them where you are at?
No, but just practicing. Look, it may help. I mean, I knew a guy in years ago that literally would not say a word till he thought it all through. And so you would be talking to him and he may just look at you. And that may go on for 15 or 20 seconds, which seems like forever, until he's thought through everything he's about to say. He was literally parsing every word until he opened. And you may want to just do that. It may be aggravating to people, but don't speak without first stopping, and practice not speaking till you thought about what you're about to say. Don't just sit still waiting to say what you're going to say. Think about what you're going to say. All right? And so that pause. And I mean, I'm sitting there like I want to pull the words out of this guy's mouth because you know me, I'm not that kind of slow down, very patient guy. I was like, I need to know what you're about. This was somebody I was consulting about some health issues. And he was about to give me sort of his diagnosis or thoughts about what was going on. And he was just staring at me quietly. But I noticed over time that was how he always spoke. Not just because he was really thinking this particular thing through. He only spoke after thinking first about what he was about to say. That's a really good thing to do. A little hard on people who are dealing with you, but it is a good habit. And then at that point, once you have the habit, maybe you could speed it up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? All right, Shira.
Praise Abba for this wonderful message. And I really did.
That's good news.
That is good news. I did really get corrected as you were speaking about an area of personal discipline that I need to work on. So,
well, good.
When you worked through everything, there were so many nuggets, but by the time you got to Revelation 14:6, I just got really excited because I saw the good news to fear Elohim is the beginning of wisdom, knowledge, understanding. Worship him who made everything. And it just struck me that doing his word brings all the things we were created to long for. So there's this big vacuum inside. If we're not longing for what he created us to long for, we can't get there. We have to start with, what am I really aiming for? And it's just Shabbat. It's a day to honor his creation. And I just said, we were created to long for redemption, reward, prosperity, satisfaction, and purpose. And so I think it's really good to check often, what do I really want?
Amen. Amen. Look, one of the things that I think we forget sometimes because it's so much of a problem for us is this understanding of desire, okay? You are created to desire. Now, sometimes we desire things we shouldn't, but desire, when targeted and aimed in the right direction, gets you the good things that you want. You have to want it, desire it, long for it, as you said, okay? The problem is that we tend to desire things that are not good for us, and we don't control that. So it's undisciplined desire that's really the problem. It's not desire itself. And so, allow yourself to really want the kingdom, to really want this relation, to really want covenant. I mean, desire it with everything, because he says that you should do this with all you have. Now, also the good news in Revelation, it says the everlasting good news. In other words, this is good news that was always there. By everlasting, it doesn't mean like it's going just forward. It means it always was. This was always the good news. Fear Yahweh, and remember that he brought everything. He's the creator of all things. Give him that proper respect, and everything else starts to fall into place, because then you know who you're dealing with, right? And so again, that's a good news that doesn't just start in Matthew, as Christianity might get you to understand. But it's the everlasting good news that Revelation talks about. And it's about fearing Yahweh. Now, Yeshua teaches us how that all plays out and also why it benefits us and everything else. So there's an element that Yeshua brings to it. Of course, he also is the walking, living Torah. He is the word of the Father, and he's also the Yahweh that we deal with mostly in the Old Testament, because Yahweh the Son as opposed to Yahweh the Father. And this isn't some weird Trinitarian thing. There's two separate beings who happen to have the same name, in Scripture. Okay, Craig. Go listen, and the Father and the Son teaching explains all that. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for this. The gospel is certainly an area that we all need to study in. I got somewhere around when you were mentioning the shame and I think maybe about being ready to be here, and that was S.N.I.O.P, which was something that you used to had talked about. I think it's being susceptible to the negative influences of other people.
Yes.
But couldn't quite get it to line up with but I think that that can be a real challenge within the vertical alignment as well. I don't think that it's happening now, but there were at times some men involved with the ministry here that weren't, as you said, they weren't walking the walk, talking the talk, not walking the walk. Not everybody sees that at the same time. It's an incredible hard thing. Like everything that somebody has to experience here, they're going to experience. When we first moved here, I came to work for you part-time, which was a huge blessing. But right away, the man that was your second in command, talking just negative, just every time we were alone, it was instant, and it was like he had a trust for me that he shouldn't have had. And so hard for me to deal with that, because also getting counsel from this man and not really understanding what was going on, it just gets to be a really difficult thing that we think we all need to have a really big heart, I guess is what you said, with family too, that we all need to be, I don't know how to explain it, but it just can be, we can all deal with things that can be really difficult at times, and maybe nobody else around us actually sees what's actually going on and how difficult it can be.
I appreciate you saying that. And by the way, that person you're talking about is now publicly out there saying that, when he had his journey here, they're like, they built this into whatever. They did not, but that's okay.
I'd seen him on a sidebar YouTube, but I wasn't too happy.
And no, okay? Actually, there are people that have left who mostly said that once they left, this whole thing would collapse because they thought it was all about them, okay?
They were liars.
Look, and so what, you know what? This is an interesting thought, and I'm going to give Craig, I'll give you a little credit for this, is that, if you were to talk to someone below the leader, could be the second, third, whatever in command, so to speak. If you're talking to anybody and that person's talking negatively about the leader, that should not warn you about the leader as much as it should warn you about the second in command or the person you're talking to. Okay? Amen. Because if the leader really was all that, then why are they still there in second in command? What are they doing? Why are they there working with and assisting and all this stuff? What's their point? And then why are you talking Lashon Hara against the leadership? Yeah. And see, we've had lots of that from almost everybody except Rabbi Tom and Elder Billy, pretty much, that has worked for me in those capacities, have talked very badly behind my back and tell a lot of people. And yet it's funny that the people would start listening to them because it feeds into them wanting to believe that because they just don't like something I did. And so they want to believe that. It never seems to bother them that, but wait a minute, but you're like in this position, And then they hold themselves out as a savior saying, well, that's the only reason why this thing isn't falling apart is because we're holding it together and this idiot at the top is blah, 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 blah. Look, Abba built all this, okay? And I was the one that he used to do it. None of those people were here when I started it. None of them are here now, okay? And many a person was told, Rabbi did all this without you for years. He doesn't need you. Elder had that conversation with some of them. He said, so for you thinking that, you're not being here, somehow this thing's gonna fall apart, you just don't seem to be paying very good attention. okay? Because my wife and I put this thing together, well, he put it through us, but we did the work without any help initially. And the fact that we had bad help along the way, who usurped and did all kinds of other things, shows you this is Abba saying it doesn't matter, I'm going to bless it anyway. So I don't want to tell you something, all right? You know. But what you need to own on your side of it is, how do you respond when this stuff comes to you? And are you, as we say, S.N.I.O.P, susceptible to the negative influences of other people? Okay, we really, as human beings, you see this not just now, you see it all the way back to when the spies spied out the land, how susceptible people were to the negative influences of the 10, not the 2. We are very susceptible to the negative influences of people. People can get rallied around into anything if it sparks something that because they'll go to you and get you all excited about it because they know you already have some reason maybe not to like that person, okay? And they're going to feed into that. They're going to throw you a little bit of food in that direction saying, oh, I know you already don't really love everything because I heard you have a problem with Rabbi at one time. Well, here, let me give you some more stuff to help you feel even more negative, okay? And so that's on you. Look, I'm going to sound like Gamli'el right now. This thing that we're here doing, if this is of Yahweh's, take your best shot. It's not going to matter. Okay? If it's not, then it doesn't matter what you do. It's not going to last. It's not going to work. It's not going to continue. Yet we've been doing this now, going on, finishing up 11, we started in 2012. Okay, so it's going to be finishing our 11th year here, or 10th, we're going into whatever, our 11th anniversary. And look at the size and the growth and the size and the growth. That doesn't mean we're perfect, but it certainly looks like we're being favored, okay? And yet, you know, I'm serious. We've had people leave of late who literally said we would be bankrupt by the summer. This is a couple years ago, and our finances have never been better, okay? Even through COVID, even through everything else. Because they didn't understand what I was doing and what he was doing with me. They just didn't understand. And when Elder gets up here and talks to you like during the tithing time and explains to you what he understands, he gets it. And he sees how I make the decisions with these things. And really, it's because the people that left were recklessly spending, and then that's what would have bankrupted us. So actually, we did better once that happened. So,
Yeah.
Okay? But that's the whole thing, is that this is all about him. And if it's about him, this claims to be his. And if it is, it should look like it and bear the fruit. And if it's not, you should see that too. Okay? Period. All right.
And I think that there is a right way and a wrong way. I don't think that you're really intentionally hurting anybody's feelings. Although I think that everybody that's left here has left with hurt feelings. I think it's a hard thing that they just don't want to work on themselves, and there's only so much that you can do. But I think like sharpening a knife, maybe more so than the clay, that there's a level of sharpness where it becomes a delicate kind of act and not like a axe head to the grinder type, depending on what type of tool you're sharpening. So I think that I see a lot of that as well, that there just isn't that, I don't get that harshness that
It's not a harshness. Okay, so generally what happens, just to kind of throw this out there, I know we're kind of running on time here, but look, almost everybody that's left, not the people that worked here, but the other people that left, are all people that we helped financially, and we helped in lots of ways. So it's not like they didn't get any help and love and generosity and everything else. But at some point, I told them no more. Or I told them that they were wrong in something, and that's when they received it as harshness. All right? Never mind that I bailed them out of some terrible financial tragedy and help them keep their heads above water, whatever it is. And these are the ones who we have given the most to, mostly. Elder's just doing a lot of nodding his head. And then it's amazing how they're the ones, we almost worry about the people we help financially, they're the next ones going to leave, because that seems to be the pattern. Because they're all excited about that part of the relationship. But as soon as I get in their face and say, hey, this thing you just did, you need to stop that. Because they were causing problems in the body, spreading stuff that was going on. So when it comes down to that kind of, that's not harshness, it's just strength. But people who are not used to strength receive all strength as harshness. Okay? They do, all right? I've had this since, we've been doing this for over 20 years. We had people in our first congregation that were sort of Jezebel-type strong women. They wanted to dominate. They had men that their husbands, they dominated and everything else. And when they tried to dominate me and they bounced right off, they left the congregation. Because they are used to talking to men, and the men just do whatever they say. And I said I was going to be doing something. This lady came up and said, you can't do that. I said, absolutely, I can do that, and I don't want to hear another word about it. Okay? But she wanted her say, she wanted her influence. And I said, I hear you, but we're not doing that. But people are not used to, I don't know how else to put this except to say it this way, they're not used to dealing with a real man. Okay? Like someone who's going to do what a man is supposed to do. I'm not saying, oh, I'm a real, you know what I'm saying? But they're not used to dealing, there's so many weak men in their lives. Okay? And so almost all the people that have left, it's been the wives that have been really the reason. And the wives have had a problem because they have weak husbands, and then the wives run into me and have a real problem with my strength, and then they end up leaving. Okay? Okay? And that's what we see over and over and over again. You know who does well? Ask any of the people that have given all the great testimonies about how when they've been in counseling, and ask them how strong I've been with them in the counseling, but because they took it right, the fruit came. Okay? Because somebody in your life has to have that strong hand of uncompromisingly telling you the truth. Okay? Without compromise, we'll tell you look in your eye and just say what has to be said, and you're sitting there going, I can't believe. I had one lady say to me, I don't think anybody's ever talked to me like that. I said, that's your problem. Your problem is nobody's ever talked to you like that. So you don't even know how to answer and react to something like that. Somebody should have talked to you like that a long time ago. That conversation actually happened, okay? Where the person looked at me like appalled, like, oh, I can't believe you talked to me. Nobody's ever talked to me like that. I said, and that's why you're this mess, okay? Because you've needed somebody to tell you, stop, knock it off, okay? Shut up. Apparently in counseling, I say that a lot, because Billy keeps count of them now. I'm in counseling, he goes, that's one. Anyway, but you know, that's the thing. And again, but people, you should appreciate that. Haven't you had enough talking heads in front of a mic that were completely useless, really? Yes. I mean, really, how useful were they in your life in general? Oh, they sounded good at the mic, maybe. But were they really going to tell you what needs to be said? Were they going to tell you the truth? Were they going to look you in the eye and not sugarcoat it and tell you what needs to be said? Probably not. Okay? And I have no hesitation or reluctance to do it because it's what you need. I don't do it to be mean or this or that. I do it to embarrass Billy. No. No, normally in the counseling, he's just going, that's my rabbi. Oh, my goodness. Okay. So I do it because it needs to be said. All right? And he's had a lot of work with a lot of pastors over the years, and this is not the same thing. This is different. Okay? This is raw, real, straightforward stuff. This isn't a guy who's a hireling. I'm not trying to earn my salary and this and that. I don't care if you never send another penny. So I'm not trying to get you to, do any of that stuff. I'm doing what he called me to do, whether anybody listens or not, whether anybody sends any money or not, it doesn't matter. Okay? And trust me when I tell you, if I wasn't doing this, I could be doing a lot of other things that would do just as well for me, okay? But this is what he has me doing. But because I'm not doing it for those other reasons, I can do it as raw and straight and with integrity as I do. And that's really the key. And actually, that's a word you used during the tithing and offering that I really appreciated, that, that somebody at least recognizes that I have integrity, okay? Because that's all you get up here is, this is congruent, 100% what I feel, believe, and there's no sugarcoating, there's nothing for theatrics, there's nothing for show. It's raw, straight, this is what he gives me to say, with all I've got, all right? All right, Pete.
My sense is that those members who are part of the crew who jumped ship, that's on them, and this boat's not going back to pick you up.
No, look. I had this discussion with my wife today or yesterday about it. We were talking about some people that we recognize that are somewhere else, or she saw them in a store or something else. Ultimately, these things bore good fruit because those are elements that were negative in the building. So I call it addition by subtraction. Things get better when there was less, because the people that left needed to leave. Not because I don't ever want them back, and they should, but they have their own journey to do, but doing it here, whining, complaining, and backstabbing is not getting us anywhere. Okay? So good, go where you have to go. By the way, if they had just come to me and said, look, this isn't working for me, I want to go somewhere else, I would have sent them off with my blessing. You have to do what you have to do. This isn't a cult. I'm not going to attack you because you left to tell you you're doomed now. This is a place for somebody who's ready for this. If you're not ready for this, you might have to go for a little while. But this is for those who are ready for this. Some people think they are, come and realize they're not and have to go somewhere else, and then maybe they come back. Some people have come back. Mostly they don't, even if they probably could, but because there's too much ego and pride to come back, they're embarrassed. Stop being embarrassed. If you're watching out there, don't be embarrassed. Just come back. Okay? There's not a one of you that left that I wouldn't welcome back. Just come back. But to come back, remember there's a process. You got to come and make things right with me and set things straight and not be embarrassed about it. Don't just show up. But you left in an ugly way. You got to fix that. I'm ready to embrace that and welcome you and everything else, but you got to come and make it, you got to do the right thing. You're not just going to come back and not talk to me. Okay, come to me, as others have, and said, I'm sorry. I can think of somebody specifically who came to me and said, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I went on a journey, I realized I made a mistake, and I said, absolutely wonderful, thank you, you're forgiven, don't worry about it, welcome back. Okay? All right, Pete?
So, getting back to the part in Acts where the Yehudim were insisting that new believers had to be circumcised first, do you think it's a stretch, pardon the pun, but a stretch, to say that James was perhaps mindful of that part in Genesis 34, where requirement to join a group was based on circumcision? In other words, if you want to be with us and do what we're doing and share with us, you've got to be circumcised, because it didn't turn out well for those folks at all.
No, that's with the Dina incident, no. I'm sure he was mindful of that, but just the main thing that we should be getting out of Acts is that the argument was made for segregation, basically, and the winning argument was, no, everybody's equal, everybody's coming at this from the same, without partiality, and that the vertical Deuteronomy 17 structure is witnessed by us to see James in the headship. When he made a decision, there's no more discussion. There's a bunch of discussion happening until that moment. We read only some of it, but I'm sure there was a lot of stuff going back and forth. And he said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Because that's the Nasi authority, the head, the president, the presiding person of the group's authority. Okay? And so James was that guy. And when he said it, that was it. And it would have been arrogance for them to do anything else. They knew that from Deuteronomy 17. And so it's wonderful to see that, yes, it's still playing out in post-Yeshua dying and being resurrected era. Like you see this in the book of Acts, that they're still doing Deuteronomy 17. Okay, Pete?
And finally, Rabbi, when you were in Revelation 14, I went further down to verse 12, where it says, here is the endurance of the set-apart ones. Here are those guarding the commands of Elohim and the belief of Yeshua. Does that sum up the good news that's talked about?
Yes. Okay, because it's putting the same idea of connecting those two elements, right? What do you need? Well, do you need the letter to the Galatians? No. Do you need 1st, 2nd, 3rd Peter? No. Do you need 1st, 2nd, 3rd? Do you need 1st, 2nd, 3rd John? No. What do you need? You need the witness and understanding of Messiah and the Torah. Okay? Now, the other things are very helpful. Okay? Because I had someone ask me one time, well, do we need Paul? I said the word need is the key here. No, you don't need. Because none of the people that came in the book of Acts that you read about had Paul and his writings and his letters or any of that stuff. Didn't exist. Okay? So when it says, and 10,000 came in, and 1,000 came in, and 2,000 came, all these thousands came in, none of them had read any of Paul's letters. They didn't exist yet. Okay? So no, you can come into this with the two things you need. You need to know about Yeshua, and you need to know the Tanakh. Okay? The testimony and the Torah. All right, Steve?
All right. I just wanted to make a comment on, you talked about letting go, and I just want to say this. For letting go, for some it hurts more to let go than to tolerate the repeated beating. So maybe you could talk about that, because I think even hearing the fact that that's what you're doing, maybe that'll help you realize that you're doing it and you need to take a different direction.
Okay. I watched a really brief TikTok, Tony Robbins, the other day, and it was really powerful. He said, you are exactly where you are as far as what you have is at the level of what you tolerate. Okay? Because you think, why don't I have what I want? Because you're having what you tolerate. If you stop tolerating it, you might actually get what you want. Okay? But you tolerate not being able to finish paying your bills at the end of the month. You tolerate the struggle. You tolerate all these things. If they were intolerable, you'd do something about it. Okay? And so that's part of the strength of the motivation that Scripture gives you when it tells you, look, you need to aim higher and stop tolerating just this miserable, going nowhere life, but have it be something you're looking forward because it has some place that it is going. There is a place that you're headed, okay? That place isn't up there. It's coming here. But you want to be in that place when it gets here, okay? All right, Brian.
I really enjoyed this teaching, and I just want to say accountability is everything. Accountability in the proper way, in the horizontal, with your spouse, with brothers, is everything. Even more so with the vertical. With the structure here, having the ability to come to somebody like you that I recognize as a person that speaks with the authority of Elohim and being able to come to you and say, I screwed up, I need help. That is such a huge blessing. I can't tell you how many times having the proper accountability with my wife, with my brothers, with you, has absolutely kept me out of some very negative places. Having that accountability breeds trust. It brings shalom. It brings emunah. And whenever you bring up accountability and proper relationships and submission, it always makes me think of one of my favorite verses in Scripture, which is very direct about how important reproof and submission is. In Proverbs 12, verse 1, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. It doesn't get any more straightforward than that.
No.
If you recognize this person is an authority, Abba has brought me here to be under this person. If we are not submitting, especially when we come to you for counsel, and we don't follow that with full integrity, we're being stupid and we're dishonoring the Father.
Right. Now understand the word reproof means that it's corrective disciplining, right? It's somebody who's doing it in a way to get you to do and make a correction. It's not just being mean to you, okay? So you don't receive reproof, you're being stupid, because it's intended to get you into a better place. It's intended to correct something. And that's really, really important, One of the things I just say about what Brian was saying is that people who come to counsel and the ones who do the right way, and by the way, Brian has come to me literally and said these words, Rabbi, I need you to straighten me out. I know I'm wrong, but I can't understand why. I'm mad right now. And he was mad at me. But he had the humbleness and the approach of recognizing, I'm probably wrong, I'm processing things wrong, so I need Rabbi, please show me where I'm getting this wrong. And I did, and he was fine almost immediately after that. But that's because it was what he brought to the table, though. He came ready for that, expecting that, okay? He didn't just come to me and said, I don't like what you just did, I'm mad at you, blah, 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 blah. No, he came saying, I know this has got to be something that I'm just not seeing and processing right. Go ahead.
Just real quick, I didn't mean to interrupt, but what you just said was very powerful. And the difference was I realized that the answer was not going to be your answer. I had full trust that what was going to come from you was going to be the Father. And it wasn't just what you said. What you said was what made me feel about 99% better. It was the fact that at that moment I didn't realize it, but what I needed was a father. And Rabbi is not a touchy-feely person. Surprise, right? When I stood up after that incident, I said, thank you, and I went to walk out. He said, hey, come here. And he gave me that fatherly hug that I didn't realize I needed. And when he did that, I literally felt all of the anger, I was livid, I really was. All of that literally melted away when he did that. That was not him, that was the Father, and he is the willing vessel that the Father uses.
All right, just to add the last piece of the picture here, that incident had several people livid, and at least half of them left over it because they didn't come talk to me, okay? And so I applauded Brian, who came to me, because they were all discussing amongst themselves how mad they were about this decision I had made, and yet it was the right decision. And I think Brian agrees now that it was the right decision, but they couldn't see it at the time, and they didn't give me any opportunity to explain to them why it was the right decision. They were just mad, and they were having an emotional reaction out of just fear. Okay, it was a fear reaction, and yet there were those who did not, and what was the result of not doing what he did? They left, never to come back at this point, right? Have not returned over what they claim was this incident, which really I think it was just a plausible excuse that they could defend to leave, okay? But just keep that in mind, that multiple people experienced the same thing, and how different people handled it got different results. The same incident. Some people thought it was a great decision right off the bat. Other people hated the decision. But the people that didn't like it, only one came to me to talk about it. Okay? All the rest pretty much left. Or just sort of let it go at some point. But even when they let it go, left anyway. So it just took them a little longer to leave. And so there's the thing. And look, I'm here to try to show you, I know this is going to sound whatever to anybody, we're trying to show you what structure can look like. We're not claiming we're doing it perfect. We're also trying to show you what a man, me, elder, Rabbi Tom, we're trying to show what men can look like, okay? We're also trying to provide for you proper fathers for those who don't have one or never had one. I can't tell you how many daughters I have all of a sudden. Okay? And no, I'm not a touchy-feely guy, but I do like to give hugs, and I do like hugs. I just don't like to give them to everybody all the time and just randomly. But I have a sense when you need one, and we'll go and give you one. But it's when you need that assurance from a male authority figure that there's somebody that loves you and has your best interest at heart and is here to keep you safe, okay? But see, a lot of you have never had a father like that, which is incredibly awful. I mean, it's just, it's just awful. And so, that's part of what the leadership here is trying to provide for so many people. And some of you are older and you're widowed or you're divorced or whatever, and you're women that don't have a covering, and you don't have a man, and you need one for certain things, just to run things by, whatever. And that safety and that strength that comes from having that other element in your life, and the ministry tries to provide that for those who want that as well. And so this is something that we realize as a ministry, we're trying to meet a need. And it's almost like a black hole. It's so deep. The amount of need is so big. But we do what we can. So I appreciate those who, like when Brian just said that it filled that. He didn't even realize that was there, but that it filled that for him there. And I'm glad that I was able to do that for you. I didn't realize that until you just said it, that's what you were feeling at the time. But I just felt moved, led, whatever, inspired to say, no, come here. Let me give you a hug. All right? Okay. Olivia.
So I really liked the good news section of this teaching. It's been pretty enlightening to me. So my question is, in this part and the last part, you would mention Yeshua as a sort of high priest, and then his anointing and his works, and then you would mention the fivefold ministry. So does that mean Yeshua was a part of the fivefold, he fits one of those roles, or what?
No, all those roles together, okay, to some degree, form Yeshua, okay? because he had all of those things. And then he trained men to walk in those things, and he inspires and anoints men to walk in those things. And these are all pieces of what Yeshua is. He's everything, right? And so he's all the things that we need, but rather than we getting it all from him directly, he has prophets and teachers and evangelists and apostles, etc. Okay? Good question. Thank you. All right, I know we've been running late, but Rob, go ahead and try and get something off the live stream.
We just got a few, Rabbi. So Rick Johnson, in Acts, what were the set-apart places?
Okay, we're talking about going to the temple. Okay? So it said when they were going to the set-apart place, okay, they would go and visit and speak in the temple like Yeshua did.
Bob Crone, this is another fantastic teaching, Rabbi. Question regarding Acts 5:34 through 40. Why does, quote unquote, the church appear to defy Gamliel's validity test?
Look, like many people in power, you're going to have somebody like Gamli'el stand up and get in your face, and you can't. They were very sensitive to public opinion, right? That's why they couldn't just go and beat on the apostles in public, because they were very popular, okay? Remember it said that verse where it says, well, we were afraid of the people. Well, Gamli'el was highly respected, so they gave him a lot of yeses to his face, and then they went and beat on the guys and sent them out, okay? So that's normal power inside of human beings. That's how power can look when that power is threatened. Gamli'el gets up, and they're like, yeah, whatever, okay, good. Now bring the guys in, let's beat them up and tell them not to do this. Because they were not submitted to Elohim is in charge. Right? Gamli'el said Elohim's in charge. They did not believe that. They believed they were in charge. Okay? And so, sure, it says that when he said what he said, that they were like, oh yeah, whatever. And then I'm sure that at that point Gamli'el left, and so did some others, and then they went and brought the apostles in and beat on them. Okay? Because that way they were showing respect to Gamli'el, but then they still did what ultimately they wanted to do. All right, next.
Okay, last one. Donna Stevens, Acts 5:28 through 40. Is this where today's lie stems from the Messiah hasn't come, and this is why they're still waiting for his coming?
Acts 5:28. Is this where today's lie stems from? The Messiah hasn't come, and this is why they're still waiting for him. Well, it's not stemming from here, okay? I mean, Gamli'el is simply saying, look, if this is not the Messiah, it'll play out. Where the lie comes from is the authorities have always maintained and pushed the agenda that they did not want to give this man and his teachings any kind of credence. Because to believe him to be Messiah, they've got to make all the changes that he's told them to make. And they've got to yield and repent and do all these things. So what they do what everybody does. What does everybody do when faced with being wrong? You either repent or you dig in your heels and double down. So that's what they did. And so they've maintained through time that he was a Messiah. Of course, it didn't hurt that the enemy has this whole false system kind of come into place that Judah would never buy into anyway. And that comes about fairly quickly. It sounds like a long time, a few hundred years, but in those first couple of 200-300 years after Yeshua, the system comes in that would not allow for Judah to kind of embrace this. And remember, initially after Yeshua and all this is happening, Jerusalem gets under siege and gets destroyed, and the temple gets destroyed, and they get all scattered. So there really isn't that much of a comprehensive Jewish community like it was then to even be looking towards. And so the Jewish community is now going to blame, because they get beaten on and everything else, that it was because of this false Messiah, because of all these other things. Somebody has to be the scapegoat, okay? All right, so again, I appreciate everybody in the Afterburn. Excellent comments and questions. Look, I don't want to sound like a broken record, and this isn't about me. If I'm not the guy for it, then find the one that is, okay? But you're supposed to have that person. And so you need to find that person. And again, it doesn't make any difference to me, if it's me or somebody else. Matter of fact, it'd be great if it was somebody else and I could go sit where you are and let them do all the work, okay? I'm not kidding. Some of you think I do this because I like the power, the control, and all this stuff. Just ask Elder how I walk around like all full of myself and power and everything. Like that just doesn't happen, okay? All right? And so, go ask Uncle Bob, my best friend from going back over 20 years, if I've changed any really in 20 years. So all of this quote unquote success hasn't changed. I'm still the same person. So that's not what it is. The question is, where do you, in your relationship with Elohim, how much do you trust who he's working through and your ability to find that person or people that are out there? And I think if this is going to be like as in the days of Noah, as we head towards whatever end times might look like, it says like the days of Noah, right? How many righteous were there in the days of Noah? One. Okay, so as we're heading to the days of Noah, I think that the likelihood that you're finding an abundance of these people out there is going to be kind of small. Okay, so you need to go and look and find and see what that is all about. And then just work from that direction. Okay.